Thursday, everybody. How you guys doing? What are you doing on a Thursday? A little Jelly Roll, Brandon Lake mashup. Welcome. Hey, if you can come on camera, do it. It's more fun that way. Just giving it a few minutes. We had quite a few people registered, so I'm surprised we have such a small group, but it is 4 o'clock on a Thursday. So good to see you. Wilson, good to see you, sir. Where are you at in the world?
It's good old Monroe, Washington. Good to see
Mon
you,
Monroe, Washington. Man,
everyone.
need to follow up with you, see how the Airbnb life up on the lake is treating you. Good to see some new friends, some old friends, and everybody in between. Well, guys, I'm going to kick it off. We'll record this here for playback in our Facebook group. And by the way, if you guys haven't joined our community, the Dead Presidents Club, turning dead presidents into living legacies is kind of our mission. Helping people learn how to do money different. We'll have the playback in there, and I know a lot of people like to have those as well. But I'm really excited. It's been a while since I've done a like truly faith-based talk. Like, for those of you that don't know, what's that? Oh, it's okay. We'll mute everybody. It's been a while since I've done a truly faith-based talk. For those of you that don't know, I mean, it used to be what I did for a living. I used to travel and preach and speak at churches, and I was a church planter at one point. And I promise I won't get too preachy on you today. But it's been a while because I've been living in kind of money land, business land, real estate land the last number of years. And I just have been like feeling this like kind of draw to really pull the two worlds together and find more places. I think one of the areas I think most of us can agree where the church has struggled is when it comes to our relationship with money. And whether you came from a really healthy financial background or understanding, or you're in a great church, or you got church hurt, or maybe you don't even believe in church, but you're like, hey, I saw this guy, and I'm here to kind of hear what we have to say. I'm convinced of one thing, which is that the Bible is full of ancient wisdom. And that the wisdom of old is so much better than the ideas of today. And so today, like in probably a half an hour, I just want to go through 10 biblical truths or rules that I found through scripture in no particular order of significance, but just 10 that kind of came to my mind, came to my heart, that I believe will, when applied, will give transformational impact to your financial life and to your life of abundance. And let me be clear about a couple of things. One, I am not a prosperity gospel guy. I don't believe that the only measuring stick of abundance or wealth is money. But for the purposes of today, we're going to talk a lot about money. So I feel like I have to say that up front because sometimes people get offended, like the only measurement of a wealthy life or a life of abundance is how much money you have in the bank, and I don't believe that at all. And I don't believe how much money you in the bank have in the bank is a measuring stick for your spirituality or your standing in the kingdom of God. But I also don't believe that God designed you to live in lack. And so there is a tension that I live in. It's the meeting of two opposites. It's the both and that wealth can be more than money, but wealth can also be for our money. And so I'm going to go through a couple of things, and I'm also going to warn you if you've been around me long enough, you already know this about me. But I'm gonna probably kick a few sacred cows and see how they moo. And see what people have to say about it. And my opinions are mine, yours are yours, and we can still be friends, whether you agree with all of these principles or truths or not, or you agree with my interpretation of them. That's your prerogative. And that's mine, and we can still be friends. That's the best part about life and humanity is that we don't have agreement is not a minimum qualifier for relationship. And so I'm going to go through these 10 here. Like I said, I think will probably be 20 or 30 minutes, and then at the end, if you're still around and you feel so inclined to give me some thoughts or ask a question or just want to share your perspective on anything here, I would love for this to be a dialogue as well. So let me go through them. in the order they fell out of my mind. The first principle is the principle of dominion. This idea that God gave Adam a garden, not a job. That we weren't, in Genesis, it says that God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. God saw that it was good and then gave it to Adam to take dominion and subdue the earth. The idea that I have for a life of abundance is not that job or management or administration is bad, but it's a reminder that we weren't the design of the garden was not to give us a management role, but it was designed to give us a place of provision to steward. That God's plan was never slavery, it was dominion unto multiplication. This idea that we literally in our lives, that if the idea, we all know this, or many of us would know that the idea is that that the garden was the original design of God. And so if the original design of God for provision, for life, for abundance, for godliness was the garden, then we have to apply that to our lives today to go, what would the garden look like in our lives today? And so every one of these principles and truths, I'm going to try to give you like a practical move or a question. And my question here is, what is your garden? Jobs are good, but ownership is better. God gave you a garden, not just a W-2. So what does that look like for you? Is it a business? Is it an asset, digital assets, real estate? Are you more bent on tracking your income, or are you bent on tracking your net worth? And I think one of the things that we miss is that we weren't called just to serve, but we were called to take dominion and subdue the earth according to our kind, and God called it good. The second principle or rule.
You don't have to face it to me.
Oh, let me make sure everybody's all mute. It's okay, it's getting some background noise. I don't believe poverty is a spiritual virtue. This one's going to ruffle maybe some of your, if you're more traditional theological feathers. I believe that poverty is not a spiritual virtue, but it was a curse that Jesus came to break. John 10:10 said that the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but that I came to give life and life with abundance. Proverbs 10 says that a rich man's wealth is his strong city, but the poverty of the poor is their ruin. And Ecclesiastes says that the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money. And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life from who has it. I challenge this notion, and I can't prove this, but I'm going to give you some thoughts. I challenge this notion that Jesus was broke. See, people come at me and they're like, well, but the Son of God has no place to lay his head. And I understand that, but I don't think that the philosophy and the fables and the fairy tales, or sometimes we call them parables, that Jesus taught in were always indicative of what was exactly true. It was more about teaching truth through imagery and through knowledge and through language that people could understand. See, I don't believe Jesus was broke. I believe he was backed. He wasn't controlled by money, but he wasn't a victim of lack. And I think sometimes in our Christian circles, we have spiritualized poverty as a virtue, and we have created a standard by which we believe that it is almost holier to have lack. And I just don't see any real biblical evidence of that. Now, I will say this: there is nowhere in the Bible where involuntary poverty is celebrated. Nowhere. If you can find it, please shoot it to me. But what is celebrated is stewardship, abundance, blessing. Now, voluntary poverty, there's a lot of examples of that, but involuntary poverty was never celebrated. And this idea that Jesus was poor because of a couple of scriptures that may have been applied or not even fully understood in context, it just feels like a stretch to me, because my question is, if Jesus was poor, then why did he have a treasurer? Treasurers were only reserved for business people that had a lot of resources that needed to be maintained. And I also wonder why Jesus's robes were gambled for at the cross. My suspicion is that because they were of great value. As a matter of fact, there are some theologians that would argue that the garments that Jesus that the Roman soldiers were casting lots for, or were playing blackjack for at the foot of the cross, were worth up to 1 year's wage, 1 year's salary. I don't believe that Jesus was poor. I believe that Jesus came to break the curse of poverty and not allow us to become a slave to money, but to be empowered to work, make it work for us. Number three is wealth is not about income. It's about ownership. I mean, this kind of comes back to the garden, right? Adam got a garden, not a job. But Proverbs 13 tells us that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. How do we do that if I don't have anything to give them, if I don't have any ownership to provide them, then how do I provide an inheritance? But it says that the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. Deuteronomy 8:18 says it like this, probably the most famous wealth building or prosperity gospel scripture of all time, that you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to create wealth. And what I love is normally we just stop right there and it says, for he who gives you the power to create wealth, but it actually says that so that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers as this day. That one of the ways that God confirms his promise to his people is not in their bank account, but in their ability to create a life of abundance. See, you don't get free by earning more money. You get free by making more actions of ownership. Your boss signs your paycheck, but ownership sets you free. Oops. More background noise. I got to end here. Hold on. But your ownership is what sets you free. And you know, this is one of the things that I'll refrain from making too many Dave Ramsey jokes. But when Dave Ramsey says things like your greatest wealth building tool is your income, that's only good news if you make a lot of money, right? Like there's some people that maybe some of you are on this call and you're like, yeah, that's been my greatest wealth building tool. I'm like, I'm happy for you. Like, that's amazing. I love that. But you are the 1%. It's not, if your greatest wealth building tool is your income, that is really bad news if you're struggling to pay your bills, because ultimately ownership is what builds wealth. And people get so focused on making more money, trading their time for more money, building a life where they can get paid more in exchange for their time, and they don't understand that part of what they were given is the gift or the ability to create wealth. And one of the things that we have to learn as a church is how to upgrade our mindset to go, I have to start thinking outside of the box. And I have to start learning to leverage systems that are built today, practical systems, to create long-term beneficial outcomes. We're going to talk in a minute about debt, but debt is one of those examples. It's another Dave Ramsey sacred cow, right? This idea that debt is somehow inherently evil, bad, risky, whatever. But what I believe, just for the record, if you guys don't know, I'm a real estate guy, so this will probably go without saying, but I believe that the greatest wealth building tool that has ever existed is debt backed by a physical asset paid for by that asset. What do I mean? In real estate, it's very obvious. I borrow somebody else's money. I buy a physical asset, so the money is secured by an appreciating asset. And I'm not paying the debt payment. My renter is paying the debt payment. The greatest wealth building tool that's ever been created in our modern society is the ability to use other people's money to buy appreciating assets and then not even make payments on that borrowed money because our renters are paying for it instead of us. So practically speaking, we've got to understand that ownership is the goal. Here's another practical way I could say this, because I know that we've probably got quite a few real estate investors on the call. My least favorite investing strategies are fix and flip and wholesale. Why? Like, why are these my least favorite? Because they're bad? No. Because you can't make money doing them? No, of course you can. They're my least favorite strategies, though, because all they help me do is make more money. They don't help me build my wealth or my legacy. Wealth comes through ownership. Legacy comes through ownership. Income helps pay the bills and is obviously necessary. We all have to figure out how to make money, but ownership is where legacy is built. And so freedom comes from what you own, not what you earn. That is one of my principles. Number 4, cash isn't king. Jesus is, but cash flow is pretty seconds under that, right? I know we're being tongue in cheek. Obviously, Jesus is king. If you're a believer, you believe that to be true. But you hear the term cash is king. I would argue that cash flow is king. Luke 16 says that if you have not been faithful with unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? Proverbs says that you know the condition of your flocks. You give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever. Does a crown endure to all generations? Part of understanding that ownership is the key to building wealth is understanding that you don't, no, let me say it like this. Nobody has ever saved their way to financial freedom. Nobody has ever saved their way to financial freedom. I've never heard of anybody saving their way to financial freedom. They have to invest, they have to buy, they have to leverage, they have to grow their resources to a point where it produces income that pays for their liabilities. A very practical book, if you guys haven't read it, many real estate investors have, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is a Rich Dad Poor Dad 101 concept. I buy assets that produce cash flow or income, and I use that income to pay for liabilities. So many people are buying liabilities that they think are assets, and not understanding that assets produce income and liabilities cost income. Rich, you'd like to know if I'd be his rich dad. You know, Richie, come on over. We'll hook you up. Thinking about this from a perspective of growth, even when we think about equity as real estate investors, I love equity. I've got a lot of it, but you can't eat equity, and you can't fund vision with a stagnant savings account. But Jesus is Lord, I put on here, but cash flow pays the bills. Okay, so we have to create a system by which our assets are paying for our liabilities. I probably should have put the chart on here, but there's this great chart. You can look it up, the Rich Dad Cash Flow Quadrant. I would encourage you to look at it if this is new to you. But it's this idea of leveraging your income to go into assets that produce passive income that funds your lifestyle. We have this rule at our house that my wife and I can have anything we want as long as it's paid for by an asset. There's nothing that I can't have. There's nothing my wife can't buy that is not available to her as long as we have an asset that pays for it. And that is the rule, that it's not about how much money I have in my bank account. It's about how much cash flow I have that produces income to pay for my liabilities. Number 5, look at that. We're halfway there, 20 minutes in. Debt isn't sin, it's strategy when you use it to buy assets and not liabilities. This is a big problem for my friend Dave Ramsey and I. I got a couple of things. I got a lot of things to say about this, but let me start by giving you the scriptures. Why then did you not put money into a bank? At my coming, I might have collected interest. See, you guys have probably heard the story, the parable of the talents. Even the ruler, the master, came back and said, "Hey, you should have done something with my money, and if you weren't going to do anything else, you should have lent it to the bank." Right? You should have given it to the bank, so at least I could have gotten interest. And there's these scriptures that are taken, I'll say, out of context, that have created systems of shame that have tried to get people to be motivated on a shame-based system, not an empowerment or a truth-based system. And scriptures like the borrower is slave to the lender. We've heard this before. This is a big Dave Ramsey kind of feather in the cap, that you don't borrow money because debt is slavery, debt is bad, debt is risk, debt is inherently ungood. I've got a couple of problems with this. First of all, let's just say for a second it's true. The Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender, but it also says that the employee is slave to the employer. But I don't see a baby step for quitting our jobs. Right? So we have to be objective, right? Everything has to be taken in object activity. But I would also say this, that context matters. See, in a culture when that was written, that the borrower is slave to the lender, we were talking about a culture where if I didn't pay my debts, I literally went into slavery to my lender. How many of you understand that if I borrow money from Bank of America and I don't pay my bills, I'm going to have consequences, but I will not go into slavery to them, right? They're not going to come drag me away and make me work to pay off my debt. So it's important to understand that while I understand the biblical truth is that we don't want to be dumb with our money and we don't want to become leveraged, it is irresponsible to shame people into believing that debt is inherently sin or is inherently ungood. See, debt is dumb if you use it to buy a boat, but it's brilliant if you use it to buy a duplex to pay your bills. And that is one of the greatest wealth building tools. The other thing that I gotta say about this is that cash is defense, debt is offense. There is a time for defense. I would argue that I even have no fundamental issue with you working to pay off the house that you live in. I don't have a fundamental issue with that. But I do have a fundamental issue with saying that the only way to build wealth is to do it in cash. Because going back to your income not being your greatest wealth building tool, the percentage of humanity that have the ability to save up enough cash to go pay for a rental property in cash is so infinitely small. But even if you do, by some reason, win the income lottery and have enough money to save up to go put into assets and to go pay cash, once you do it, you're out of money again and you got to wait another 10 or 20 years so you can save it up and do it again. I'm not a sports guy, but I know this to be true. No sports game has ever been won. No point has ever been scored in the history of sports by only playing defense. We have to learn how to play offense too. And if you're in this room and you're like, I need to start making wins for my family, I need to start building legacy, I need to start building financial freedom, it's probably a time for you to start looking at playing more offense and less defense. Cash is defense, but debt is offense. And to say that it can't be done with risk mitigation is just simply not true. Leverage debt to buy assets that produce cash flow that will pay the debt payments. You have to do it with wisdom, not fear. But a passive income plan with borrowed money and bold stewardship is a principle for developing a life of abundance. Number 6, your money has a mission. Steward it on purpose. We've heard this before, but Luke says that one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in very much, and one who is dishonest with very little is dishonest in very much. If you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you to all the riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? 2 Corinthians, one of my favorites, is that it is he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for supply and multiply. To multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way, to be generous in every way, which through God will produce thanksgiving and great increase. See, money, one way to look at money of all types and varieties is to look at it like a seed. And God provides seed to those who sow. It doesn't say that God provides seed to the saver or seed to the hoarder. It says that God provides seed to the sower because God funds what he trusts. And if you want to increase a life of abundance, particularly in your finances, you have to manage what you've already got. See, I read an old book. It's called Thou Shalt Prosper. It was written by a Jewish rabbi. And it talks about the Jewish cultural perspective on money. And I think we all know that stereotypically the Jewish people are known for being a people of resource. And so it talks about why culturally they're known to have so many resources. And some of the principles that were so interesting, one of which was that they believe that money, business, and enterprise are inherently good. As if to say that, like, if money were a living breathing organism that had the ability to have its own character, that its resting character would be good. That it's they believe that it's humans that corrupt it, not the reverse. This idea that money doesn't corrupt us, it exposes us. So what's the principle? We have to build character before we build capital. It reflects, money just exposes, it just amplifies what is already there. If you're greedy and you get money, you're going to be more greedy. If you're generous and you're faithful and you get more money, you're going to be generous and faithful. If you're generous and bad, but if you're super generous but you're really bad with money, you are a bad person to give more money to, because you haven't learned the skills to manage your generosity with stewardship, and vice versa. You guys hopefully are tracking with what I'm saying. One of the ways that we start to build a life of character when it comes to resources is to treat our money like it has a mission.
No.
I've even heard it said like this, and I believe that it's true. I believe that it's true that money is attracted to the hands of goodness. That if you want to, another way that you could say this biblically is that you would want to be good soil for seed to be planted in. If God funds what he trusts, or if God gives seed to the sower, then how much more seed is he going to give to the sower of good soil than he's going to give to the one that maybe has rocky, uncultivated, unnourished, untended to soil? The idea here is that we cultivate a soil of our life to be known and recognized by God and by other people around us as good. And as we cultivate the soil, aka we build our character before God, God provides more seed, because he goes, oh, that soil is getting healthy. Oh, that life is getting trustworthy. That field will produce good harvest. And my encouragement to you, just this is not, yes, it's very spiritual, but it can also be very practical. How we start harvesting or how we start cultivating good soil is we start by giving our money a mission. If your money right now is designed, if your mindset is I'm just struggling, I'm striving, I'm going paycheck to paycheck, I'm trying to figure it out, trying to build my life. Once I get it all cleaned up and figured out, I'll start giving. I promise you two things will happen. One, you'll never figure it out, and two, you'll never start giving meaningfully. Why? Because as a culture, when we say that when our bucket is full, we'll give out of the overflow, that's never what happens. As a culture, what happens is our bucket gets full and we go buy a bigger bucket. But when I put on paper a mission for every measure of money that I have, I put it on assignment and I go, this isn't about me. My life isn't a bucket. It's a pipe, and everything that comes in flows through me through a filter called stewardship. Then every dollar has a job and every asset has a purpose, and my field begins to grow. And so I would just encourage you, just practically, like, sit down with your spouse or significant other or whatever and give your money a mission. Maybe you're sitting here and you're like, I don't have enough money to give it a mission. Like my money's mission right now is to to survive. Then I would challenge you to dream with a bigger heart and lens that God is faithful to provide seed to the sower. It's like the old adage, if you build it, they will come. I would argue that if you start tending the field before the seed is even there, you will find more seed in your hand. That's the principle. All right. Number 7, multiply, don't maintain. Kind of coming back to the parable of the talents. You guys know, for those of you that don't know the story of the parable of the talents, the Michael Miller standard version is this: 3 servants, 1 master. Master splits up the talents talents were just a measure of money. Splits up the money. He gives one guy $1,000, one guy $10,000, and one guy $100,000 according to their ability. I would argue according to the soil that their lives have cultivated. Okay. And the master goes out and comes back and he says, I've made an investment with you and I'm here to collect my initial capital, and my return on investment. And for those of you that know the story, the one who got $100,000 did really well with it, and the master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And the one that had $10,000 did really well with it, and he said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And the one that got $1,000 was so afraid that the master would be disappointed in him if he did not multiply well, he chose to take the path of safety and say, "I'm not going to multiply, but I will maintain, because at least then the master knows I won't lose." And he buried the $1,000 in the ground. And when the master came back, he was furious, because he said, "Well, if you were just going to maintain it, then why didn't you at least lend it to the bank so that I could collect interest, you dummy?" That was essentially the Michael Miller version of the story. And he takes the money from him, and he actually gives it to the one who had the greatest amount given to him to begin with. The idea is that if you are faithful with little, you will be given much. The servant who played it safe got rebuked. The one who multiplied got rewarded. Playing small doesn't honor God, it dishonors your calling. Playing safe does not guys, let me say it to you like this, and with all the love in my heart. Some of you are playing it safe and calling it stewardship or wisdom, and it's actually just pandering to a spirit of fear that doesn't want you to grow. We're calling our safety and our comfort stewardship. And I believe that God is saying, "No, I'm going to entrust you with something, and I want to go watch you multiply." The goal here is not maintenance with our resources, it's multiplication. This is a command over and over and over within scripture that we would be fruitful and multiply. See, you're not broke because you're bad. You're broke because you buried your seed and called it wisdom. You're not broke because you're a bad person, or you're unfaithful or untrustworthy. You haven't hit your financial goals, or you haven't risen to the financial level that you feel you want to be at, because you buried your seed. It's time to set some aggressive financial goals. It's time to dream a little bit bigger. And it's time to start thinking about, how do I increase my income annually through assets, not through effort? See, anybody can go work harder, but it takes wisdom to learn how to work smarter. Stop playing defense and start planting the seeds that you were given. Number 8, almost there. Tithing isn't the ceiling, it's the floor. If you're a believer, the 10% is not a tip to God. God's not interested in you tipping him. God wants everything. See, Malachi 3:10 says, "Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be more food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord. If I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down a blessing until there is no more need." Here's another way that I should have put this one up here. Paul in Philippians writes to the church in Philippi, I think Philippians 4, and he says, for those of you that don't know this, Paul said over and over again that I deserve to get paid to basically be your pastor, but I choose not to because I don't want to be bought by you. You don't really have any money anyways, and I like building tents. That's essentially again, Michael Miller standard version. That's essentially the message Paul has. Paul was not a marketplace apostle. Paul was the apostle Paul, who also funded his life by being an entrepreneur, and arguably a very successful one. And here's what's interesting. In Philippians 4, he says to the church in Philippi, he says, "I don't pray that you give to my mission so that because I need your money." He literally says, "I'm fully funded and more." He's literally saying, I have no need for your resource. I don't pray that you give to me because I need it to fulfill the mission. I pray that, he says this in Philippians 4, that I pray that you would continue to give to my mission so that it would be credited to your account in heaven. What is Paul saying? Paul's saying, I don't need your money. But if you partner with what I'm doing, you get credit for the fruit of my labor. That God, generosity has never been about guilt. It's always been about governance. The Bible also says that God wants a cheerful giver, but I would argue that he wants a strategic giver, not a fearful giver, not a formulaic tipper, but somebody who understands that when I plant seed in good soil, what I get is credit. Here's one way to say it. When you give to that World Vision sponsorship, or that Compassion International, or the missionary that comes into town, or the homeless guy on the side of the road, or wherever you feel compelled to sow your seed, what happens is you don't even know the ripple effect of impact that's being credited to your account. I have this picture that as we go through life, living a life of generosity, not putting tithing as the ceiling of my giving, but as the baseline of my faithfulness, that we get to the other side of eternity and we stand before God, and God shows us a sea of faces that were impacted by our faithfulness. And we look at God and we go, God, I've never even seen any of these people. And God goes, yeah, but your generosity impacted every one of these lives. And we go, but God, I didn't give them any money. And he goes, yeah, but remember when you gave it to the missionary? The missionary went out and fed a village and saved a thousand, led 1,000 people to the Lord. That's in your account in heaven. Oh, remember when you gave to the World Vision kid and you sponsored the child? He went on to be a person who cured a disease in Africa and saved thousands of lives. Every one of those lives is in your account in heaven. You get the point. Generosity is not about anything other than faithfulness. And I'm convinced of one principle, and one principle only. As a matter of fact, it's a core value in my business, that a culture of generosity always pays for itself. That if you're trying to figure out how to get over your 10% giving to the church, that you're missing out on the legacy that you were called to build. It's time to start giving like it hurts, until you give from a place that will never hurt again. Give like your life and legacy depend upon it, because they absolutely do. Number 9, home stretch. Shame is a bad money coach. Shame's a bad coach of anything, for the record. Romans 8:1 says there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And Proverbs says that the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. I love it. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. And whatever you get insight. See, this is interesting because a lot of people in finances are using shame as their greatest motivation tool. This is why I can hate on Dave Ramsey so much, because to me, he's helped a lot of people. I get that. But there is a measure of shame when we go, like, your entire income system is built on selling books to poor people and telling them that their debt was inherently stupid. And I go, well, we got to, nobody has ever disciplined their way into transformation because you shamed them there. Jesus didn't use shame to change hearts. Why are we using it to fix our budgets? We don't shame people into stewardship. We coach and we care and we love. And there's been a lot of guilt and a lot of pain and a lot of shame-based system into playing small instead of equipping people to play big. Here's a very practical move. I want you all, if you haven't done this, whether you're struggling financially or you've got $1 million in the bank, this is a good activity. And I'll put myself on blast here for a minute. I haven't had a budget in my house for probably 15 years. Like, I haven't had a budget. We haven't had to. We've lived the life we've wanted to live, and we live a pretty nice life, if you ask me, and I haven't really had to worry about it. But somebody, one of my mentors said to me somewhat recently, he said, Michael, if you don't tell your money where to go, you'll wonder where it went. And I don't know if he came up with that or if Dave Ramsey came up with that. That'd be ironic if that was a Dave Ramsey quote and it moved my life. But the point is that I was like, it struck me. And then I heard another person online say that money is like a cruel mistress. If you ignore her, she will leave you. But if you pay attention and you provide care, she'll stay forever. And it's this idea that like I just had this thought. I was like, we haven't even looked at our money, like spending really, other than like the balance in the bank. I haven't looked at this in years. So I just went out and got Rocket Money. It's just an app I downloaded and linked all my bank accounts and credit cards to it. And my wife and I went through this exercise where we just started looking at our money. And I literally, with no shame, no anger, no accusation, no nothing other than to just go, I just want to see what's here. Like I just want to go look at it. And you guys, I'll tell you this, I should probably be more embarrassed about this than I am. But like we found like more like healthy mortgage payments worth of spending that we were getting like very little if any value out of. Like I'm literally paying like a vacation home mortgage on DoorDash every month. Now, neither my wife and I cook, so and we got little kids and everything gets delivered to my house. Like I'm not just talking food either. I'm talking like batteries, diapers. Like if it can be delivered, it's getting delivered. But we looked at it and we're spending all thousands and thousands of dollars on DoorDash, probably paying, 50% markup or whatever the craziness is that involves. And we looked at each other and I go, is this providing us a beach house's worth of value? And simultaneously we were like, no. Like I can run to the store and pick up diapers for half that price. I can go pick up milk. I can go get dinner. Like we're not getting that much value out of this. So let's make a plan to give that money a different mission. And that we didn't go, oh my gosh, we're so stupid. How dare we be so irresponsible? Pointing fingers, I can't believe you, and I can't believe we didn't do any of those games. We just looked at each other from a place of empowerment and went, is this serving our lives the way we want it to? Or could we give this money a better mission? And we went through, and there was a handful of things that came up, and we've got quite literally thousands of dollars that we're putting to work in more meaningful ways. That is not because we were bad or because I was bad with my money or I needed to feel bad about not being a good steward, but because if we don't pay attention, we'll wonder where it went. So the practical advice I have is for everybody to start by going and looking and categorizing their money. If you haven't done that, I really encourage you to do it. But I need you to do it with two things in mind. One, you have to start with kindness. Nobody's taught us how to do this right, you guys. The school system has failed us. The church doesn't know any better. Like all of the best people that could have taught us the best things, they just didn't. So we have to start figuring out how to look at our money and budget and do all of these things and look honestly at where our life has become without trying to build a system of shame. And then if you're in a place where you want and feel necessary or convicted to build a budget, I say this: build a budget of reality and empowerment, not a budget based in shame. What's the difference? A budget based in shame says I set a number, an arbitrary number. I'm going to spend this on groceries, this on gas, this on. We set these numbers. This is how most people budget, by the way. We set these arbitrary numbers of what we think we should be spending on all of these categories. We inevitably go through a month and don't hit them. We blow all the budgets and we go, see, I'll never be able to figure this out, and we give up. That is a shame-based budget. A reality-based budget or an empowered-based budget says, I'm going to go look at what the last 6 months of my life has told me matters to me, because where my money goes is a pretty good indication of what is important to me. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to ask a question. Do I get value for that amount of money out of those things? If you're spending $1,000 in the last 6 months at Starbucks and you ask the question, you go, am I getting $1,000 worth of satisfaction, value, empowerment? Is it helping me achieve my goals? If the answer is yes, I live my life for that burnt cup of coffee every morning. It just it kicks my day off perfectly. I love it. Then I go, cool, move on. But if you're like, honestly, a K cup out of a Keurig would probably do the same thing for me. Now you're not making a decision because you're bad or made or shame-based decisioning. You're making a decision out of empowerment. And that to me is such a more powerful tool. Because once again, I've yet to find anybody who has shaved or saved their way into financial freedom. But if you don't give your money a mission, you'll wonder where it went. Last one, guys, and then I'll wrap. I should have known my preacher was going to come out and I was going to be more than 30 minutes, but we made it anyways. We made it anyways. You are not a reservoir. You are a river. You are not designed to just hold and hoard and contain, because reservoirs dry up. People who drink from drying up reservoirs get sick, but people who have rivers that run through them will always have life. Isaiah 58 says that the Lord will guide you continuously and satisfy your desire in scorched places and make your bones strong. That you will be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. And then Genesis 12 says, and I will make a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. Here's my synopsis. You're not called to succeed. You're called to solve problems with your success. You're not just called to be successful. You're called to be a city set on a hill. Isaiah, I think, says that when the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. Is your life and your resources and your success, is it being contained in the ecosystem of your home, or is it flowing into the world in a way that solves meaningful problems and transforms cities? This comes back to giving your money a mission, but it's the blessings are not for us to hoard, they're for us to pour out, to not just give to charities, but to actually heal cities and provide practical resources. Your abundance is somebody else's breakthrough. And here's the craziest part. I told you that a culture of generosity always pays for itself. It's not that we give to get, but when we give, we get. There's this reciprocity. It's almost magnetic. It's like when I bust out the bottom of my bucket and I stop trying to be a reservoir and I just let God's blessing and abundance flow through me, that it's like everything begins to grow, because there's something magnetically attractive about being a abundant life or a city set on a hill. A couple of my mentors have said a few things to me, and maybe these will inspire you because they really inspired me. One of them said that you have to have a dream big enough that fits everybody else's dream inside of it around you. What's your dream for your resources? What's your dream for your family? What's your dream for your legacy? Does your dream for your financial life, for your family's well-being, is your dream big enough to hold the dreams that your sons and daughters and grandchildren may have too? My biggest dream in life is that not that my kids will inherit too much money and just be spoiled brats. My biggest dream in life is that they'll never have to wonder what their foundation is going to be to build the life that they were called to build. My biggest dream in life is not that the city will sing my praises, but the city will recognize my legacy, because I left something that built a foundation, that everything that came into my world didn't just stay with me, but it flowed through me and impacted my children and my children's children, and they learned to do the same. And the ripple effect became the Philippians 4 truth, where it's, I don't pray that I do this so that I can get credit. I pray that we do this so that you can get credit, so that the city can be healed, so that the abundance can flow out. Design a life that blesses people you'll never meet. Let money flow through you, not just to you. Because a culture of generosity always pays for itself. All right, guys, that's my time. I'm gonna take. I'll stop, and I'd love to hear feedback, comments. If not, I hope this was inspiring to you. I just, it was on my heart to do, and I wanted to create space. But I also want to make some super practical. I want to make some super practical offerings to you. One, stay connected. We have a free community. Like, stay connected. Follow me on social. Let's be friends in Facebook. Go to the Facebook group, search Dead Presidents Club. We do these calls and stuff all the time. The second thing I want to encourage you with action is to get focused. Sit down and make a plan. Clarity provides confidence, confidence provides action, and action provides results. If you don't know where the target is, you won't know where you're aiming. So we got to start sitting down and dreaming. And the last thing I would say is, don't do it alone. Like, look, this is the best value prop I could offer you today is not 10 points of inspiration, but is to say I literally believe so much in this culture of generosity that if anybody on this call is sitting here going, I don't know how to take the next step in my life of abundance or building wealth, book a consult with me for free. Literally go to calendly.com/Everly group, Everland group. Everly's my daughter. I always mix that up. Everland group and book a call. No, I'm not selling you anything. I got no dog in the fight. I just want to see people win. And I want to see people live the life they were called to live. There's an old Zig Ziglar quote, if you've ever read any Zig Ziglar stuff, that says, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want first. People always seem to think that I've got some sort of agenda when I do these things, and I kind of do, because like, I got a business and I do have stuff that I sell, and all of those things are still practically true. But my biggest agenda is to watch you win, is to see people live the life that they were called to live. I'll just say it like this: that there is a spirit inside of you, the very essence of God, that is desiring to break out through you to manifest something in and around you that you don't even know or believe is possible yet. And if I can be a small part of that journey, man, it's worth it. So don't do it alone. If you want some free time with me, I'll get on with you for 30 minutes or an hour and just talk about your situation. If you are interested in like investing with us or any of those things, we can help you with that. But that's not the pitch. The pitch is, let me help you. Let me weigh in on your situation and give you some thoughts, if it's helpful to you. So that's my time. Let me just wrap this up. Let me pray for you, and then I'll stay on if there's any other questions or comments. I'd love to hear some feedback. But Father, I thank you that you are the God of breakthrough, that you are the God of abundance, that pressed down, shaken together, running over beyond measure, that as we pour our lives out as a river, not a reservoir, that you are faithful to fill us up. And God, I just pray even over for those that might be sitting here going like, my finances are not where I want them to be. I'm still stressed. I'm still struggling. I don't know how to make all of this work or come together. I just pray that you would give peace that passes understanding and wisdom that supersedes the wisdom of man, that the biblical truths of God would reign evident. And I just pray, God, that you would continue to provide strategic wisdom. And for those that are here that are like, man, I'm sitting in a good place. I've grown into comfort. I've got money in the bank, or I'm building in a right way. I just pray, God, that you would give fresh mission to
There's also Subway.
the sowers. God, that you would give fresh perspective and mission to those that are looking to build, that we would be pulled from our places of comfort into our places of growth, so that we would be cities set on a hill, that the city would rejoice when the righteous prospers. And so I bless everybody here. I bless bank accounts, I bless families, and I bless households in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. Comments, thoughts? Think I'm a lunatic? I'm fine with that too. Uh, yeah, you're welcome, John. Justin said, you said this to me the other day, and I went through all my things and literally stopped 400 to 500 a month immediately that I forgot that I had on auto pay. That's a perfect example. Dude, guys, I'm going through this in my business right now. We had like 9 Zoom subscriptions in my company. Like, why the crap do I have 9 Zoom accounts? Like, do you know how much money we're blowing through for no reason? And it's literally because if you don't pay attention, you'll wonder where it went. So, no, I love that, Justin. Good for you. Any other thoughts, questions? It could be practical. We got a lot of real estate people probably on the call, so I'm happy to answer any real estate questions too. But if not, we'll give everybody the rest of the night back.
Yes. Hey, Michael, I could jump in with a thought.
Please do.
Yeah, so I was thinking through and about, I'm all for leveraging debt. I have a lot of it. I think I put it to pretty good use. But, in your opinion, I think at some point you would agree that becoming over leveraged and risky is irresponsible stewardship of what we're given. Now, there's some point where the dude was given his talents and he risked it and blew it. That's not great either. And I understand you're trying to push the other side of like, moving away from fear, but I think there's a line there. I don't know, maybe you could speak to where you think that line is.
Yeah, I think it's a great question and great point, and I don't disagree. I think I hammer so hard on it because, frankly, in Christianity, Dave Ramsey's hammered so hard the other way that it's like the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Like the truth is if you're using visas to buy Louis bags, then you probably need to go call Dave Ramsey. But like if you're Wilson buying appreciating assets that are cash flowing, you need to be borrowing more money. And so the practical answer to that, in my opinion, is somewhere like where I'd like to land. So here, let me answer the question as a waterfall. As an investor who has, hundreds of rentals now, my leverage position has to come down because the more I own, the more my risk profile increases with leverage, right? And also, the more I grow, the more defensive I have to become, both financially and legally, right? Like we all understand, like the more money you have, the more sharks there are in the water coming around, and all of these different things. And so, here's what I mean by that practically. If you've never owned an asset before, and you're just trying to break in and figure it out, I would say whatever it takes, up to 100% leverage with a good coach to help you analyze the deal, not just do it mindlessly, but like I literally would go, if it takes you to max out a credit card and get an FHA 3.5% down loan just to get into an asset that you can fix up and add value to, like I'm probably going to advocate for that. But as you get that first rental, and then one turns into two, and two turns into four, and we start to grow, that can't continue. We have to start to become risk mitigators. And so to me, it's a waterfall. Like when I'm starting out, like in a perfect world, like yeah, we're all leveraged at 50% and call it good. Like that'd be amazing, right? But for me, I go like it started for me in my world like around 80 was like kind of where I was like 85 sometimes. That's where it kind of started. But then it went to like, 75 was like pretty much where I wanted to be. And now I pretty much don't leverage anything above 65 or 70 if I can avoid it, because frankly, my philosophy is that if the worst thing historically, which was 2008 and 9, happened again, the national loss in home values was 30%. So if I lose 30% and I'm at 70% leverage, I can make all of my lenders and investors whole. So that's my philosophy. Now, the caveat to that philosophy is creative. And that is where it kind of gets interesting, because I would still take 100% leverage on a deal that cost me very little cash if the cash flow paid for the leverage. So to me, that becomes a defensive offensive strategy, less about leverage and more about cash preservation. That's how I start to look at that. But again, I would never tell somebody to go take 100% leverage on a rental property with no cash in the bank, right? But if I've got cash in the bank and I can take 100% leverage deal that's cash flowing, I will still do that. So if I'm leveraging with risk of investor, and the other, I guess there's a lot of levers I could pull on, Wilson, but I'll shut up here and hear what your thoughts are. But like the other thing I think about is long term, short term. So I would never bridge short term debt above 70 ever, no matter what. But I'll bridge long term debt higher, because when it comes to real estate, equity comes and goes, but cash always flows. And so as long as I can survive a downturn in an equity loss, it's very unlikely that I'm going to lose in the long run, as long as I have long-term fixed debt. But that's why, like, if I'm in short-term private money or something, like, I'm never going to leverage above 70% at that point, because I don't have time on my side. But if I got a 30-year mortgage on my lake house, Like, yeah, it might suck and I might get kicked and it may not be cash flow positive, but if I can survive it for a couple of years, it's very unlikely that it's not going to turn around for me. So that's kind of my crazy ramblings, but what are your thoughts?
I think there's a lot of great wisdom in there. I really appreciate that. I think what's something I'm hearing a lot lately is, don't take advice from a person who's already rich on how to be rich like they did, because they're going to give you advice about how where they're at today. But what you're saying is really good, because you're saying for someone who doesn't is just starting the game and doesn't have $1 billion to lose, it's a different game, right? So in that case, I think, taking more debt and taking more risk makes sense, but then tapering off towards when your profile is different makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I think you also have to think about too, like, I mean, there's so many equations we could get into, but it's like, what's your age? Like, what's your retirement plan? Like, there's so many variables, and also like, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so I get to say whatever I want, but like, if you went to a financial advisor, they would literally go through a risk profile with you to determine your strategy, which would include leverage. And so, there's a lot of perspectives on this, but yeah, like I know a little bit more about your situation, obviously, and I go like, I'm going to be more defensive in your seat than I would be if I was just starting out and trying to buy my first house, right? Because you have more to lose. And so that's my approach, and that's where I am right now. And I'll be honest with you guys, like I got a lot going on, but it's not all working. Like I bought 100 properties my first year as an investor. Um, that was way too freaking much. Like, don't I am not the prototype of success. It's we're figuring it out and it's working, but like you can go broke buying good deals. Like it has not always worked out, and most of my pro formas are long since shot. And I've had 20 or 30 open construction projects at a time, and like so my point is like you build with wisdom, you build with uh uh advisors, right? But then also you got to build with your own risk profile. Now, arguably, I'm just kind of built for crazy. So, like, there is this part of me that's like, I'm going to be higher on that risk profile than maybe some other people would be. But I just am convinced. I bought my very first deal in 2007, my very first property. I bought it in November of 2007 for $252,500, Mill Creek, Washington. It was a townhome. And 6 months later, my neighbor who had the same property sold at auction for 50 grand. And so effectively, my $252,000 investment was worth 50 grand. And I thought for sure my life was over. And I sold that property 10 years later to the month for $2,500 more than I paid for it. If I would have waited 4 more years, it sold again for 500. It sold for double. And we all know that at some level intuitively, but that taught me something that gave me the power and the courage to go, as long as I can cash flow, I'm going to be okay. As long as my debt is stable and I can cash flow, I'm worrying less about equity than I've ever worried, because it's more about stabilized debt and cash flow, in my personal opinion, up to those thresholds. So good question. Good thoughts. Any other thoughts, questions? Awesome. Well, I will let you guys go then if there's nothing else. Appreciate you showing up. Book a call if you want to, and we'll look forward to connecting with you all again in the future. Hey, I'm doing a sorry, one quick thing. If any of you are real estate investors and you want to learn how to raise private capital, I'm doing a webinar on that next month. So watch for that. It'll be in the Facebook group, or if you signed up for this, you'll probably get an email for it. But we're doing raising private money webinar, and how do we raise money without asking for it? Because I think it's really cringy to run around and just ask people for money. That's what like some of the online gurus will tell you, is like, just go call all your rich uncles and tell them to invest in your deals. It's just so cringy and it like never works. So how do we build a reputation for this, and how do we get money without asking for it? And I have a whole strategy for that. So we're going to talk through that next month. So if you're interested in that, watch out for that call. All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. Take care.